I'm Susie Landolfi, and welcome to Be Crazy Well. Now, why would a therapist say that? Because we all have mental health struggles, even therapists. The good news is we have so much more information about how we can be crazy well. On my podcast, we don't focus on what's wrong with us. We want to know what happened to us. We're going to explore how trauma affected us, both negatively and positively. That's right. I said positively. It's called post-traumatic growth, and it's a real thing. Be Crazy Well will share mental health wellness practices, the newest mental health research, and most importantly, how we all get to create the person we deserve to be and the life we deserve to live. So join the mental health evolution and be crazy well. I don't know if I told you this, but I box 3 days a week. That's right. Let me show you that's a good muscle right there. For you that are just listening, can't see, that's quite a bicep muscle. And I box 3 days a week with George Foreman III. I know what you're all going to say. What? They all call George? Yeah. And I think that's pretty interesting. In fact, many of you don't know that we actually used to do that a long, long time ago. The whole witch trials were started by a mother named Ann Putnam and a daughter named Ann Putnam. So even women called their daughters their name. I digress. So yes, I box, real boxing gym. It's called craft boxing. Look it up, craft boxing. And it's beautiful. It's 6,000 square feet. It's got a ring, and the trainers are all professional boxers. And when I say professional, I mean they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing, and they know how to show others how to do it. And they're watching you. They're modeling for you what to do. They come over and just correct ever so slightly. They know how to put things in order. And even the punches, I mean, think about this. The punches are numbered. Like I'm going to show you right here. So here's one. There's my jab, right? Here's two, my cross. And 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's actually 10 different punches you can do. Now, you know, the right cross is unique in and of itself, but the uppercuts with my left hand and my right hand, they're about the same. And I can do them very low into the body, or I can do them up into the chin. And you will do those same 10 strikes, if you want to call them, same 10 boxing strikes over and over and over again in different combinations. And it reminded me of when I took ballet, and we had 5 positions. And you can't see these right now, but you'd put your feet into position 1. I'll do it with my hands. And then you would put it into 2, and then 3. Let's see if I can do this one. Do it 3, and then 4, and then 5 is way when you turn your foot the other way. And you would do those 5 positions for the rest of your life. And many of the other steps, when you do a traveling step, they would be similar, and or the same, even just the same over and over and in different combinations. And actually in boxing, we call them a combination. And then I thought of other sports, and I thought, for the most part, every sport has things that you learn to do, fundamentals, basics that you learn to do over and over and over again. And in dance, and I guess even in singing and the piano, playing an instrument, a limited number of notes that you practice and do over and over again. So I think about that, and I think about training, and I think about practice. And I realized, wait a minute. If that works for everything else that we get good at, everything else that we're doing not everything, but many of the things. For instance, there's an unlimited amount of ways to paint, I would imagine, and to create something. So that's much broader, even though there's probably some fundamentals and basics. But many of the things that we learn is the same thing over and over and over again. A limited amount of skills, practices, body movements that you learn and you master and get better at each year that you do them. And that's important, that you understand that if I keep doing these fundamentals over and over and over again, I'm going to get better at them. I'm going to be able to throw that jab. If I do it over and over again, I'm going to be able to throw it faster. I'm going to bring it back faster. I'm going to be able to place it better if I keep practicing it. And I thought, why don't we have that with mental health? Like, how is it that we know we have to go through life? We're going to deal with people, and we're going to deal with our thoughts and our emotions and our actions. And what if we had basic skills of a finite amount, like a similar amount, or an amount of things we can do over and over and over again that would actually help create greater mental health for us? And then I realized that we do. We just don't teach them. And because we don't pass them down to generation after generation, and because we don't practice them all the time, and because we don't see them as valuable, and because we think every thought we have is true and every feeling we have is a fact, we don't teach it. People's shit has to hit the fan, and then you have to go run into the therapist. And the therapist helps you uncover these things, and then slowly, sometimes too slowly, I might add, starts to give you some wellness practices, some ways to be able to deal with your spouse when you're in an argument, ways to deal with your child, ways to deal with a coworker that actually might be more effective. And then if you practice them over and over again, you'll get better, just like in boxing or dancing or any other sport. So I'm on a mission now. I want to help all of us learn some basic mental health practices that if you keep doing over and over and over again, you'll get better at them. So we'll just take one, for instance. I oftentimes talk to a lot of people that are in arguments with their significant other, family, mothers, parents, children, boss, you name it. They're just in a lot of arguments. I was just talking to a young woman on the phone. And one of the things she said to me really struck me. She said, I told him that if he doesn't do what I want him to do, then I'm going to start yelling and I'm going to be a bitch. That's actually what she shared with me. And I went, whoa, wait a second. You just told someone that if they don't do what you want, that's going to justify your behavior. It's going to justify your actions. And then I thought, well, I don't think that's going to work out very well, because someone could just one-up her and justify doing something even worse back to her. And that's when I realized and thought about this topic of why do we not have some fundamentals like we do in boxing of what we can and cannot do. For instance, when you get in the ring and you're sparring with someone, you cannot hit below the belt, even though no one's wearing a belt. I don't know if you've noticed that in boxing. They can win a belt, but they don't usually wear it when they're boxing. I digress. Anyway, so this idea that there are regulations, rules, principles, things you can and cannot do, things that are out of bounds. And if they're out of bounds, then you have to stop. And there's time limits to games and time limits to rounds. And there's markings on the ground and there's ropes around the ring. And So not only are there fundamentals that you can do, you have to stay within a certain area while you're doing this thing with these other people. And I thought, we don't even teach that. We have no limit on the time that you can have an argument. It can go on for days, weeks, months, years. I don't know any game that would allow that. I don't know how that helps anybody or anything. I don't know why you would start an argument at 11 o'clock at night after you've had a full day. That makes no sense to me. It would be kind of like having a tennis match, let's say at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe they slept all day, but maybe they didn't. I don't know why it's okay to say anything you want when you're trying to communicate with somebody. How is it that it's okay to yell and call names? Now, you can get thrown out of a game for doing that. And you can get thrown out of game as a participant in the game or an observer. You can literally get thrown out of a game for yelling and saying things that are unkind, uncalled for, and inflammatory. Somehow, there's no rules about that in our own homes. This is very confusing. It's also very troubling. So I just want to let you guys know that we're going to start dealing with things that truly help, fundamentals of any mental health practice with yourself and with others. Mental health growth and wellness for yourself and with others. And I had to learn these. I had to practice these long before I was a therapist. In fact, I think learning them and practicing them before I became a therapist, that actually helped me want to become a therapist because they worked, because I changed, because my life changed, because it got better, because I wasn't causing so much chaos in my life. I wasn't hurting other people. I wasn't going from relationship to relationship. I wasn't having issues with my child, with my daughter all the time. So these fundamentals are absolutely imperative, just like any area of our life, any other way. I don't care if it's work or like we started with looking at sports or anything else. They are imperative to be able to create the person you deserve to be, the life you deserve to live, and the relationships that you deserve to have. And I just started out with one because I thought it was so important. The first thing that I say to couples that are working together, and I don't care how they're working together, I don't care if it's a lover relationship, a co-parenting, a work relationship, and sometimes it's all three. There is no justification. There is no way that anybody would say that the fundamentals of a good partnership could be based on yelling at someone and calling names. Off the table, out of bounds, hitting below the belt won't work. Now, people say, well, I get so upset. And I go, okay, if you get upset, that's the time the bell rings and you go sit in your corner. So the round goes on. And then when you get upset, you go to your corner. Or in hockey, you get to go to the box, the penalty box. Or you get to go sit on the bench. Or you get thrown out of the game until you cool off and can come back and start to play according to the regulations again. So I'm just sort of asking out loud and sharing with you what it would be like for all of us to make true commitments to some rules and regulations, some out of bounds that we cannot justify, we cannot do in our own homes. So my first one, yelling and calling names. The only time I can yell, I could yell right now if, say, there was a family member downstairs that I wanted, and I go, hey, Logan, I can do that. Probably better if I walk downstairs. I could use the exercise as well, and then go get the person. But it's not okay if I'm standing right in front of that person and I start screaming. That's about control. That's about intimidation. I cannot call names. The minute that I swear in anger or call names, I have just upped the entire situation into a red zone. I am not looking for compromise at that moment. I'm not looking for collaboration. I'm not looking for understanding. I'm not trying to create it either. Never mind look for it. I'm not even able to create it once I do that. So what I know that goes on for me, if I want to create better mental health for myself and for all of the relationships, I don't yell and I don't call names. There's no justification. It is out of bounds. Now you might say, well, I get so mad. I have such feelings. Yeah, well, all your feelings are not facts. All your thoughts are not true. And what if you're not even yelling at that person? What do you mean? They're standing right in front of me. Of course I'm yelling at that person. No, you're not. You might be yelling at that person and calling that person names because of somebody and something that was happened to you from another person 20 years ago that you didn't get to yell at. Like when you were a kid and you couldn't yell back at dad or mom or anybody else. And now maybe that you're adult and something's happening that's similar to what happened to you when I was a kid, like a person always interrupting you. I have to be careful of that. I tend to do that. And so it happens again. Now you're an adult. You're not even thinking about the time you were a kid. And you start yelling at that person and calling them names because of what happened before. You're even not actually that mad at that person. You're reacting to something that you have not processed, you had no control over. And now you're looking for retribution now from that person. I just sat with a couple and I saw that happen so clearly. The man told me about something that happened with his mother. I was his golden boy, and my job was to make her happy. And he was sitting next to his wife, and they're really going through it. And within a minute later, he said to her, he looked right at her and said, well, I do everything to make you happy. And I went, whoa, wait a minute. Is he talking to his wife or his mother? I'm confused. And she looked right at him and said, I don't need you to make me happy. I can do that. I need you to be my partner. But he didn't know how to do that. He was trained to make her happy because that's what he had to do for mom. So now they're arguing. They're arguing about something that happened 30 years ago to him. And then her part is that she worked her ass off to be able to have a partner and to be of equal value and not have someone have to make her happy, therefore make decisions for her, therefore give her things in order to make her happy. And then when she wasn't happy about what he did or didn't do, then he was resentful. Like, look what I did. So this idea that we can have these fundamentals that we can practice over and over and over again every day in every relationship and get our own better mental health. And more than that, relationship intelligence. There's emotional intelligence and there's relationship intelligence. The ability to understand concepts and practices that help you build better relationships. And I'm challenging you this summer, because you're going to all be on vacation, most of you. I haven't gone yet. And you're going to spend time with each other doing things you don't normally do a lot during the winter months. Or maybe some of you do. Maybe some of you are on permanent vacations. Good for you. And I'm just sort of thinking maybe, just maybe, this could be a good time to practice some of these fundamentals. What are some of the others? Honesty, real hard one. I'm sort of digging in here and giving you some of the major ones right at the beginning. Most relationships already have a whole bunch of lies. That's right. I said it. There's a whole bunch of you that have already lied to each other. And again, I don't care if it's just friendship, lover, family member, coworker. There's already been some lying. And so when I say honesty, that gets everybody really upset because now it's like, well, do I have to tell them? I actually had this client after this young woman broke up with him. He said to me, if we get back, do I have to tell her when I cheated on her that she doesn't know about? I thought that was a great question, by the way. I had to really think about that for a minute. And I said, only if she asks. Only if she asks. And if she asks, can't lie. Now, there are times you can lie. You can lie to save your life or the life of anybody else. Absolutely fair game to lie. Lie as best you can to save your life or anybody else's. Other than that, this old adage, well, I don't want to hurt their feelings. Huh. Hurt their feelings. Their feelings. Their feelings inside their brain from things that happened to them before they even knew you, and you're worried about hurting those feelings. I mean, those feelings that may not be factual, those feelings that came from their own foundation and their own childhood, and you're afraid to hurt those feelings, their feelings. Huh. I worry about hurting people's toes if I step on them. So I'm very careful about where I put my feet. Worried about hurting somebody else's feelings. So if I lie to them, I'm not hurting their feelings. If they find out the truth, I'm thinking that might hurt a whole hell of a lot more. So I'm going to tell them the truth. I'm going to say it nicely. I am going to do that. And I'm going to tell them the truth. Now, I can only tell them my truth. I can't tell them their truth because their truth is theirs. When they ask me about my behavior and what I've done, I'm not going to lie to them about that. I've done that in the past. I can't think of a time it ever worked out. And 99.9% of the time that I lied, it wasn't to save someone's life or my own. It was to save or to lessen my fear of a consequence. It was to pretend I was somebody I wasn't. It was to hide something I was ashamed of that I shouldn't have done to begin with. And it was a way to lie to myself that I was being better physically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, and financially than I was. Didn't work, didn't help, made matters worse. So that idea that one of the fundamentals that we get to practice for our own mental health on daily, if not hourly, is honesty. Honesty to ourselves and with ourselves, and honesty with and toward others. So what do we cover? We covered honesty, we covered no yelling, and no name calling. I do have to tell you that was a hard one for me just because I'm from Boston. Some of you know that. I grew up north of Boston on the North Shore. That's right, the North Shore, where we had lobster all the time, and you go to the Packy to get some beers. Packy stands for a package store where you buy beer. And so we in Massachusetts literally call ourselves massholes. That's what we call ourselves. Actually, pretty proud of it. And we're pretty rough around the edges, a lot of us. People don't realize this, but it's with all the universities in Boston, it's still a pretty blue collar town. Yeah, it was hard to give up. So much easier to call names. So much easier to put someone down to make ourselves appear or feel better than, more valuable than, more right. And the minute I started to really take a look at that and stop doing that, it was amazing how much better my relationships got when we were in conflict, when we had to figure something out together. So I invite you this summer, while you're playing spike ball on the beach and doing all the fun things you're doing on the lake and every place else, do you think about what could I practice this summer? How could I have a vacation from all the BS that I learned about myself and interacting with others? What could I actually practice this summer that could actually increase my mental wellness, my mental health, my emotional well-being, and all of my relationships? You know, the Native community has a wonderful, wonderful saying. This is particularly the Lakota Nation has a wonderful saying, Matakia Oyasin. And what that means is all my relations. Another way to interpret it is we are all connected. And I thought about that for a long time when I first heard it. And I thought, man, we don't treat our relations very well. We probably treat strangers better than we do our own family members. I think they've got something here that they're reminded all the time that they are all connected. Therefore, what we do to ourselves and others is done to us, is done to others. So that kind of cyclical behavior, that name calling, that yelling, that dishonesty affects the entire community. So I invite you to find the fundamentals of mental health and practice them every day. Next week, we'll go over some more. We'll actually keep adding to these, the things that we know. In the meantime, I'm going to be boxing. And I realized that one of my best punches is definitely my right cross. Definitely my right cross. I also like my uppercut. That's a good one. So I'm going to keep practicing those until I get so good at them. It's just a part of who I am. Bless you all. Have a great summer. I'll see you each week. And I'm not going to have any guests this summer. I'm just going to do these in the privacy of my bedroom with my dogs. They're all sleeping on the bed right now. Hate that. My fault. And until we talk again, be crazy well. Do it. Be crazy well. And this theme song I just so appreciate from Calvin Love. It's called Be Your Best Self. That's what we're talking about. Be your best self. Bye all. Be crazy well.